Allegiance to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Is Laura on?
Yeah, she is on.
So we have 21 present. Presentation of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
15 seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Correspondence. In your correspondence, you find the unassigned fund balance. Any questions on that? We'll open up to public comment. Does anybody in the public care to make a comment this morning?
Okay, this is for public comment. We usually go through a process. We start with our peninsula room for individuals that are there. I did check the room at the time. There was no one present that wanted to speak. So then we deferred then to our online and call-in users. If you would like to speak, if you're online, there is a way to, in essence, raise your hand on the system. If you do that, I could recognize you, and I'll give you the floor when I state your name. For the call-in users, if you'd like to speak, you hit *3 on your phone, and again, it will raise your hand, and then when we get to your name, I will recognize you and unmute you. Right now, we have two individuals that'd like to speak. I'll unmute Christine Reed. You have the floor, and we're limiting comments to 3 minutes.
My name is Christine Reed. I live on Forestville Flowage. I'm with Friends of the Forestville Dam. I'd like to give an update on the conditions at the Forestville Flowage regarding the drawdown. In spite of below average rainfall over the past 3 months, very dry conditions recently, it is not drying out. Basically, the conditions are the same as August 6th during the parks tour. Those that observed it, last time I spoke, I invited everyone to look at the conditions on our Facebook page, and there is current information that clearly demonstrates exactly what is happening there now. And it is not drying out. However, sediment has transported out of the flowage. If there's any change in the level of the sediment that's within that flowage, it's because it has flushed downstream. This morning, we received public comment in writing from Robert Sagers along with a picture of some of the sediment. Please keep in mind that is just a one-time event that has happened repeatedly, and that is below the dam. During last month's meeting, there was discussion regarding safety because of the deer that had been trapped in the flowage. And there currently are 2 new signs that stay off of the banks in the bed of the Forestville flowage during the drawdown. Bright red letters, keep out. However, the fact sheet is still hanging in the kiosk that says watercraft can be carried in. I wrote to everybody on the board on October 24th, 2019, and pointed out the discrepancy between the health department statement saying basically keep out and the fact sheet saying you can carry your watercraft in. Recently, there were hunters shot geese, attempted to retrieve them and could not get to them because of the wet sediment in the flowage. They came back later with a kayak. I was prepared to call the fire department for rescue because they did stop this person that was trying to retrieve the geese. Fortunately, they managed to struggle their way out of there. But that's a huge discrepancy between the fact sheet and the signs that are saying keep out. that means it's no longer a navigable waterway. In conclusion, after almost a year into the drawdown with absolutely no indication that it is working as intended or any meaningful evaluation by the county of the progress, I request that the board reconsider the original decision and stop the drawdown. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do have a call-in user that has their hand raised. I will unmute you. You have the floor for 3 minutes.
Good morning. Donald Fricks, Fish Creek, Wisconsin, 8305 Quarter Line Road. I'd love to see a press release with any plausible or defensible explanation as to why the county website doesn't have a list by department of all the county employees we pay for as county taxpayers. I'll leave that there. We used to be able to know who worked in each department. Now we can't. Now we don't even have published contact information for department heads. It all goes to generic info at so-and-so. This is unacceptable. I mentioned this before. Secondly, I'd like an explanation about the origination of the Manufacturing Day resolution that's cited today. I'll question the figures because they're pretty much meaningless if you don't make a distinction between CEO salaries and, a majority of wage earners, working at any manufacturing facility in this county. We can be proud of our manufacturers, and I don't know why we have to have a joint resolution to honor them. We have wonderful work that helps people worldwide, but we also have shipbuilding, gunboats built by an Italian shipbuilder with in Marinette and sub-assemblies in Sturgeon Bay that were built for the home country of origin for about 2/3 of the 9/11 terrorists, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, who's using these gunships to perpetuate genocide on the people of Yemen. So we don't hear about this in the local news, but we can be proud of commercial, the Washington Island Ferry and the freighter work and stuff like that. But I don't know if, this type of policy that the county should be looking a little bit more into what kind of resolutions and making a few more distinctions about what we're honoring on a manufacturing day. And I don't think, and I'd like to know from a supervisor who or what committee or how this resolution came to be on the agenda today. Lastly, I'm glad to see a little blurb about sensitivity training, and I hope that is directed at 2 or 3 supervisors, because I've never had a problem with that from any county employees. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Again, if you'd like to speak, you can raise your hand if you're online, or if you're on the phone, you can do a *3. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? One last time for public comment. Anyone else who'd like to speak? Okay, thank you.
Any supervisor's response? Megan?
I would just like to point out that the official county directory is available on our website. I just went on there just to make sure that it was accessible. So if you go over to the right-hand side from our website, the official directory is in there with all the contact information for our department heads. So that is available online.
Thank you. Any other supervisor response?
Dave, I'm sorry. Rather than raising my hand, I pressed the request to speak. I just wanted to mention that I was recently in another county talking to a longtime resident of another board. And he happened to bring up that they are planning to drain that fluid. Same process we are currently using in our county, in our fluid, for the same reasons. invasive species, both animal and plant, and to contrast the sediment that's fat-based. They've been doing it on average about once every 20 years. So in that neighborhood, they understand the logic behind it. They are sensible at understanding that this needs to be done in order to keep the fluid from basically going away.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Approving the minutes of July 10th, 2020 and the August 25, 2020 county board meeting.
Motion to approve, Mr. Trustee.
Second.
Any questions, comments, changes? Susan?
On page 4, I think spell check took over. It's the very large paragraph that begins with corporation council comments, but it's way towards the end where it says restrictions would need to be well-defined, content nutrient, and I think it's meant to be neutral, and spell check probably changed it.
Okay. Anything else? All in favor of the minutes of July 10th and August 25th as amended? Anybody saying aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay, we will move down to special reports with Jody Treehouse, Wisconsin County Mutual Senior Risk Management Consultant on Harassment and Sensitivity Training. Kelly?
Good morning. I'd like you to welcome Jody Trash. She is the Senior Risk Management Consultant for Aegis, and she's going to be presenting today on sensitivity and a review on harassment. Some of you may have remembered her from 2017 when she did the harassment training for County Board. So please welcome Jody.
Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, everybody. I thought we should do like a mask contest. Who's got the best mask today? I kind of like Batman because that's kind of unique. But I saw some good Badger and Packer ones, and I cannot see what's on yours in the back. I apologize. So, what do you have?
In specific, this is a pattern that was provided by I can't remember the name of the company right now, but they are raising funds for quality growth.
Excellent, excellent. Certainly a lot of resources, right, for something new that we haven't worn in a long time. So thank you for welcoming me. I was here 3 years ago, also doing harassment, diversity, and sensitivity training. Why do we do this? Because you have been a member of the County Mutual forever, and the County Mutual Insurance Corporation is a company that you are a member of. We have committee members for underwriting, risk management, and claims. Just like many of you sit on a committee for the county, we do the same similar thing. So when we look at this, because you're a member of county, we look at where do our claims come from. And when we look at employment practices liability, harassment continues to be one of those large areas. There is no cap for harassment claims when it goes to federal court. And so those are some of the reasons that we do this. I'd like to address the comments made earlier. So we are doing the county board today for training, and then we are doing all employee countywide training starting next Tuesday and going until November 4th at the highway department when they do their fall highway safety day. So this is something that is done countywide. We do not choose out any particular group or department. This is for general knowledge and training, and our goal is to prevent claims from ever occurring. So you are welcome to ask questions as we go along. I'm going to include 3 topics this morning: sexual harassment, diversity and sensitivity and inclusion training, and workplace bullying. The costs of harassment are huge. When we lose a good staff member because they've been bullied or harassed at the county, we have to replace them. We have to retrain someone. And a lot of times we send them off to another public entity or entity where the harassment is not occurring. So we have to know about the harassment so that we can prevent, and we have to do the training to prevent it, as well as address it when a claim comes forward. So there are very high costs when we look at harassment and that type of thing. So we'll go on to training objectives. This is directly from your County of Door policy. I don't know when the last time is you read your harassment policy, but I would recommend that we take a look and do that before we start to do the training county-wide. Okay, so if any questions arise, you are ready to go with answers on how to address any complaints that might arise. It is the policy of the County of Door that all employees have the right to work in an environment free of all forms of harassment. The County of Door will not tolerate, condone, or allow harassment by any employee or other non-employee who conducts business with the county. So that means people coming in from the public as well. These policies are designed to maintain a healthy work environment in which all individuals are treated with respect and dignity, and to provide procedures for reporting, investigating, and resolving complaints of harassment and discrimination. I'm here to tell you your policy is excellent. It was well written 11 years ago. I did not see anything where I found it to be updated or improved. It's a very well written policy, and your HR department and county admin have done a phenomenal job in that. And like I say, we insure 52 of the 72 counties in the state, so I get to see a lot of harassment policies and about 130 school districts. So policies are kind of something that we look at regularly. So if you're having trouble going to sleep tonight, go ahead, pull your policy out, and start reading. Sexual harassment is defined as unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature when A, submission to such conduct is made either explicitly or implicitly a term or condition of employment. B, submission to or rejection of such conduct by an employee is used as the basis for employment decisions affecting that employee. Or C, such conduct has the purpose or effect of unreasonably interfering with the individual's work performance or creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive work environment. We normally, a lot of times in training, if you were here in the past, I break it down into 3 categories: physical, nonverbal, and verbal sexual harassment. Your policy outlines those very well and gives great examples, so I am not going to go over that today and continue on. Physical sexual harassment typically are things like hugging and kissing, coming up and giving someone a peck on the cheek or shoulder back rub. With COVID today, we shouldn't have a whole lot of that. Okay, everybody's kind of keeping the physical distancing, also helps for sexual harassment. The same, that's a positive for COVID. Okay. Verbal harassment, making comments about a person's clothing, body, or looks are one of our biggest complaints, or innuendos. So you want to be careful of that. Can you give a compliment? Yes, but it is all in how you say it. And then nonverbal. You don't have to touch a person or speak to them and we can have a sexual harassment complaint. Looking a person up and down, the elevator eyes, staring at body parts, those types of things can also be sexual harassment. I love this part of your policy. It is general harassment and unwelcome conduct. Any verbal, written, visual, or physical act that creates a hostile, intimidating, or offensive work environment or interferes with the individual's job performance. No employee shall either explicitly or implicitly ridicule, mock, deride, or belittle any person. When we talked about sexual harassment years ago, the first sexual harassment training I had to do was 22 years ago. And so often after training, people would come up and say, well, I have this situation, and really it just didn't fall under any of the protected classes, but it was still harassment. And that is why that general harassment is so important to add in here. Sexual conduct is unwelcome. Whenever the person subjected to it considers it unwelcome. The employee did not solicit or invite the conduct, and the employee regarded the conduct as undesirable. The conduct may be unwelcome, even though the victim voluntarily engaged in it to avoid adverse treatment. Some people will go along, nod their head, fake laugh, ha ha ha, and then walk away. Okay? Perception versus intention. The person making the joke or the innuendo or the comment, it does not matter what their intention was. It matters what the person's perception is. And we talk about harassment and discrimination that crosses every single one of those lines. As supervisors, every one of you is a supervisor. You are considered part of the management of the County of Door. and as such, you have certain responsibilities. Many of you sit on specific committees, whether it's law enforcement, highway, personnel, that also affect as part of your management positions. So what do you first have to do? First, you need to stop. Take a look and stop any observations that may be considered as harassment. If it's kind of in the pit of your stomach and you're wondering like, oh, this might be crossing the line, you are probably absolutely correct. You need to take immediate action to prevent retaliation towards the complaining party, and if separation is required, be sure to not punish the complainant. You want to address that with the department head. And ultimately, we want HR to be involved because HR is that neutral party that isn't usually involved in that department and has been trained in these. Kelly is part of WPELRA and WACPED. I did an entire presentation just on the Me Too for WPELRA last January 2019. So this is still a big topic. When we talk about sexual harassment, there has never been more awareness by employees or staff or the public or each other about what sexual harassment is and what that can be. Unfortunately, what you see in the media is the most horrendous cases. Someone made me have sex in order to keep my job or to get a promotion. That is not just sexual harassment. It can be much more things that aren't that extreme. It can be comments, innuendos, hugging and kissing. Okay. Supervisor responsibilities include assisting employees with a complaint, showing them the policy, knowing what the policy is and how to move forward. Refraining from participation. You are the leaders, and we need you to refrain from participation as well. You set the standard. And report any acts that you see that are inappropriate. And you would do that through human resources. You have an anti-harassment policy. Number 1 is prevention through training. You require all new staff to go through Wisconsin County Mutual's online training programs that pertain to their position. One of my seriously favorite days coming into the County of Door was when Ken walked into Kelly's office and said, here's my sheet. And he had completed the online trainings that were required for his position, which of course are the employment practices ones as well. But the fact that he did them and in such a timely manner sets a precedent and sets what we're looking for in administration. Reviewing your policy. Again, I said your policy is excellent. Knowing what your supervisory requirements are, we will talk to employees about what their requirements are, as well as how to handle a complaint and the importance of confidentiality. Confidentiality, whenever we talk about employment practices liability, is so important. Not having to tell that one person the story of the committee you sit on, or the story that you heard, or whatever the investigation might be, or the results. We want to maintain confidentiality. We don't want to have it spread through the community. We can never retaliate against anybody for putting in a harassment, bullying complaint. We can't retaliate with different job duties, not giving them a promotion, not hiring them, none of those items. And discipline can be up to and including termination. I'm going to finish the sexual harassment with one slide here, and it's something to think about. Remember that the perception of others are more important than your intentions. When the court of law looks at it, it will always be, it didn't matter what you intended, what mattered was their perception. If you wouldn't say something in front of your mom, your spouse, or your kids, then don't say it at work. And that's a great item to tell other people as well. So if you're observing something or hearing something, I think that's a great reminder. My grandma will be 102 years old on November 15th, and she is the person I have used my whole life. I'm pretty sure she's not the prude that I put her out to be. But that's, you gotta look at that. So it obviously depends on your family dynamics as well, but that can be a great tool to use. How would I feel if my spouse, parent, sibling, or child saw or heard this? If I had $1 for every person that came up to me after training and said, oh, my daughter has a situation, or my wife has a situation, or my son has a situation, I'd be very wealthy. So think about one of those going through some of the harassment, a sibling, And if you were saying, the county convention would have been occurring today, right? It would have been this weekend. We would have had a great Packer game on Sunday that we always host, our big event. It's always really fun when they win, not so fun when they lose. It was a good afternoon game. So one of my conventions that I was at, I had a county board chairman come up and he started to say these words. I know I probably shouldn't say this. My back was to him. I knew the county board chairperson. And I turned around and honestly, with full intent, to take my hand and cup his mouth. Because we had harassment complaints from him before. And I knew if he was saying, I know I probably shouldn't say this, there was no doubt in my mind, whatever was going to come out next should not come out. And I swung around and his wife was standing next to him. And so I chose not to do that. I'm not sure that isn't physical too, right? I probably shouldn't anyway. But honestly, if you, and by the way, he did get a harassment complaint. Who he sent it to did make a complaint. So I was right on with that judgment. But if you're thinking that, if that's your thought process, or you catch yourself saying it out loud, or you hear somebody else start saying that, step off. Say, yeah, you're probably right. You probably shouldn't say it here. Think twice about before you speak. Any questions on sexual harassment? So our employee groups, we will be about an hour and a half sessions. So they'll be just a little bit longer and more extensive as we go along. All right, this is something I just kind of want to watch, have some fun with. This is called the new SCOTA Fabia attention test. We'll see how our volume comes out.
To test just how much attention the attention-stealing design of the new SCOTA Fabia actually steals, we left one parked on this ordinary road in West London. We wanted to see if its sharp crystalline shapes, bold lines, and lower, wider profile would attract the desired level of attention. Will the 17-inch black alloy wheels stop passers-by in their tracks? Will the angular headlights attract the attention of other road users? Will a crowd gather to check out its fresh and sporty look? Well, not quite. But did the attention-stealing design distract you from noticing that the entire street has been changing right before your very eyes? Don't believe us? Have another look. Did you spot the van changing to a taxi? How about the scooter changing to a pair of bicycles? Or the lady holding a pig? Let alone the fact that the entire street is now completely different. Didn't think so. So there we have it. Proof that the new SCOTA Fabia is truly attention-stealing.
Did you guys notice the background changing? Yeah. Did you? Did some of you?
That's what I'm looking at.
I know you can't see the woman with the pig very well from the back probably either, right? Oh, you do have a screen in the back, so that's great too. The reason is we see what we want to see, and we only see portions of stuff a lot of time. We don't always see the really big picture. And so when I talk about a diversity, inclusion, and implicit bias, this is truly one of our hottest topics. It's not new, folks. We've been doing this training. I've been doing this training for 20 years now. Diversity, I call it diversity and sensitivity. It's all about respect, because I think that's really what it comes down to, is the respect words, and that's what's also in your policy. But people are our most valuable resource. We are here to provide services to the public. Those are people. Every one of our staff, every one of you in this room, we're all people, and we are the most valuable resource, and how we react really matters. So we have uniqueness. Every single one of us is different. Doesn't matter if you're just a man or you're just a woman. Every one of us has different opinions, beliefs, morals, and culture and race. And we want to build upon the differences. My company, in my department, we have a lot of longevity at Aegis Corporation. Not a lot of people leave. We like the environment. We work hard. We love our clients. Okay? But we recently had a couple retirements and we have new staff. And I have learned so much from these new staff. They bring in different ideas and ways of doing something, and things that I look at that I've never looked at it that way. But I have to be open to that. So understanding what is diversity. It is understanding the differences that make each person unique. And that can be everything from their thinking styles, their ethnicity, their religion, their perspectives, their job level, their culture, their skills, their age. All of these pieces of the puzzle that are up. Sorry, Ken. He has just been doing amazing. So I already passed the puzzle hint. So I'm supposed to tap you guys when I want the PowerPoint switch. And he has done just a phenomenal job because I haven't tapped once, okay? So I just want to say thanks. So I'm used to having this clicker in my hand. It's kind of just part of what I do when I speak. So what is diversity? Diversity is again about the people. It's people with different backgrounds, opinions, degrees, social experiences, religious beliefs. It's about the environment that we work in. Not all parts of my state are quite as beautiful as Door County is. I can't tell you what a treat it is. I live in Appleton, so the drive here to come up is just so much fun. And we now work with Gibraltar School District again up in Fish Creek, so that just makes me so delighted to be able to have to go farther north as well. It's about the environment, reaching our goals. A diverse workforce is a reality, and to meet the challenge, we must remain open-minded, which is not that easy. So what's inclusion? Inclusion involves bringing together and harnessing the diverse forces and resources in a way that's beneficial. Inclusion puts that concept and practice of diversity into action by creating the environment of involvement, respect, and connection. Without the inclusion, the diversity doesn't help a whole lot. So what is the difference between the diversity and inclusion? Diversity is a simple representation of many different types of people, gender, race, ability, religion. Diversity often focuses on the differences and is referred to as the mix. Inclusion is a deliberate act of welcoming diversity and creating an environment where all different kinds of people can thrive and succeed. It's the act of making that mix work. Diversity is what you have. Inclusion is what we do with it. So just by having, on the way up, I was listening to our local radio station out of Appleton, and the police chief was talking about attempting to hire a more diverse workforce. That they go down to Marquette and Milwaukee, so the police academies there, and try to hire officers of color. And they struggle to do so. Because often, like most of us, how many of you grew up in Door County? Okay, quite a few. Right, you don't want to leave. And the same thing with them that have gone to school there, might have family there, and they choose to stay there. How difficult it is to get them to come to the Fox Valley. They do a community program to try to get them to work part-time while they're in school so that they may fall in love with the Fox Valley. So it's not always easy to get diversity either, but what do we do once we get them? Harassment of protected classes. These are the federally and state protected classes. So if someone has a discrimination complaint, they can put it in based on one of these protected classes. What are they? Age. Age discrimination starts at what age? Actually 40. Which it all depends on where you are on the spectrum of age, if that's old or young. Okay, but age discrimination is actually considered at 40. Younger people do not get to use age discrimination, but do we often have age discrimination for young folks? Absolutely. If I heard someone 25 or 30, oh, they don't know anything. They haven't even been around the block. Wait till they worked here a few years and dealt with this. Of course they have good ideas. Doesn't mean we should shun those ideas either, but it's kind of a reverse age discrimination and is not protected by state or federal law. Certainly a reality. Race, creed, color, handicap, and disability. I was just in the restroom, because I drink coffee all the way here, and I was in the bathroom. I don't know if you've used your bathroom lately here, but when you go to grab a paper towel, what do I have to do? Anybody know? It has a little picture on it, and no, I wish it was that kind, right? Wouldn't that be the good kind where you just rub your hand underneath and the towel comes out? First of all, I'm not touching anything, right? This kind is the two hands. Seriously? Does everybody have two working hands? And what happens if you pull it from the middle? It rips, and you don't get any paper towel, and you probably jammed it, right? Because you pulled it one side to the other. 2 hands, I have to turn at an awkward height and reach with 2 hands on each end to pull it down. Is that good for someone with a disability? How about someone with a shoulder surgery or carpal tunnel surgery? It's very difficult. So I find it interesting. It's become really popular throughout the state that would be allowed when we have certain heights for the paper towel to be placed in. But how to get it out of the container is a whole other situation. I too like the ones where I just swipe my hand underneath and it comes out. Disabilities. I often look at when I'm coming into the courthouse. I often hit your buttons to make sure your doors are working, right? So that if someone is coming in, that they have no problems. Marital status, gender, ancestry, religion, military membership, national origin, genetic information, sexual orientation, arrest record, and conviction record. I'm going to go back to sexual orientation. When I first started doing this training, I would literally be called into a county because suddenly I had an employee who came out, they were lesbian or gay, and I had to do diversity training. That is something that amazes me. It's just something that wasn't talked about. Today we don't think as much about that or twice, but we have another issue in our school districts. And then our students who are transgender or have a different gender identity. And so we do a lot of training in our school districts. Actually, our largest loss ever for the County Mutual and CIC, Community Insurance, was for a case of transgender students. So when we look at this, if these are areas, any of these areas, because none of us can be versed in every area. If there's something you're not as familiar with, do some reading about it. Read more. People differ in many ways. It isn't just the harassment of the protected classes by federal and state law. It can be body language. How far apart we stand. Do we have eye contact or not? My youngest son is Asian. He is adopted from another country. He's adopted from the Philippines. I am a trainer. My husband is a teacher. What do we do a lot of? Eye contact is essential in our household. He was 2 years old when we brought him home. He is now 20, and I would say it's the last 2 years that he will actually, as people are talking to him, especially in public, if Kelly or Ken, Mr. Chairman, came up and started talking to him, he has to work really hard to look them in the eye. It is his natural ability to look down. That is part of the culture he was raised in for those first couple years, and it stays with them. Why do I think that's so important? Because those things do, who we are and how we're raised are really important. And those were just for the first couple of years. Things like in the Philippines, this was really hard on my husband and I, the first couple restaurants, is you drink your drink after the meal. So you can imagine we got a cup of coffee. What do? You drink the cup of coffee. And then what do you expect? A server is going to come and refill your coffee cup. That did not happen because you're supposed to drink it at the end of the meal. So they would come at the end of the meal to put it in. My son, still today, he is 20, does not drink that drink, whether it's chocolate milk, a soda, a glass of water, whatever it might be, until after the meal. So it just gives you an indication of how things can be. Do the rest of us in our family drink it right away? Yes, right? Usually we're going for second or third. So it's how we are, what we learn can be very difficult to change as well. So we have to recognize that people have differences, and then that's okay. Looking at the speaker or looking away, it doesn't mean that they're not listening. It may just be that that's a sign of respect for them. Speaking, expressing their opinions. We have a new staff member. And we've been talking about something. We are doing Zoom calls, right? Because we're all over the state anyway. And so we've been doing weekly Zoom calls. And I asked him, so why did you say something on that as we were discussing one-on-one? And he said, I'm just not that comfortable in the group of 6 or 7 on the call voicing my opinion. First of all, does he have an opinion I want to hear? Absolutely. Does he want to be called out in front of the group to hear it? No. It's more of a one-on-one conversation. It is his personality, perhaps it's how he's raised. It doesn't really matter. If I want to give his opinion, I have to ask specifically. Working styles, cultural background, there's just so many. Okay, so I'm going to move on to a picture of someone who passed away over the weekend, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And what I found interesting, so law always is an interest of mine, okay? So Grant, I like your job. My brother is a prosecutor. My son is looking at going into environmental law. Law intrigues me. The Supreme Court intrigues me. And I had heard different things. I hear interviews with her. And what I hadn't heard before was something that really is specific to today's training. In 1959, before the Civil Rights Act of 64, she graduated from Columbia University first in her class. She couldn't get a job because of three things. One is she was female. Second, she was Jewish. And third, she had children. Would you want to hire someone with her work ethic? Absolutely. But isn't it amazing how we make judgments like that? When I was hired in 1989, I was getting married and moving to Milwaukee, and an employer was looking at hiring me, and they looked at me and they said, it's between you and a 50-year-old man. You're getting married. I said, yes. Are you going to have children soon? That was their question. Legally, were they supposed to ask that? No. But was it going to make a difference in their decision? Obviously, yes. They did hire me, but I had to jump over that hurdle, right? I had to get past and make them think that I was still the best candidate. So I can't imagine what she went through in 1959 to graduate first in her class and not have one job offer. So eventually she became a professor and then got nominated to the courts. It's an indication of where we were then, but do we still have issues today? And the answer is yes. And we have to keep addressing them. There are primary and secondary dimensions of diversity. The ones in the middle, thank you. And I'm going to keep going just a little bit faster here. I have a lot of information. I'd like you to be able to take a look at it as we go along too. The next slide is diversity and inclusion goals, making full use of the unique sets of skill sets of each employee. I want staff, and I want all of you as board members as well to think of these questions. Do I bring my full self to this board? Do I give my ideas, my opinions? Do I utilize the background that I have? Does my personality show my uniqueness? Or do I sit back and let others voice their opinions and I'm too quiet? Everyone's opinion matters, everyone's viewpoint, and that's what helps us grow and be unique. So benefits continue. I cannot highlight the one down here as much. It boosts employee morale. If people are happy when they come to work, what happens? Am I more productive? Absolutely. If I am comfortable in my own skin when I come here, I am going to be more productive and the best employee you can have. If I feel like I really can't be who I am or voice my opinion, and that gets pushed down, chances are I won't be here real long, and if I am, it won't be as happy, and productivity is important. And how I treat the public can often be related to how I'm treated here as well. The number one rule for diversity and inclusion is dialogue, dialogue, dialogue. I have a son who has brown skin. So naturally, I think, what? Obviously not a racist. Obviously, that's not important to me. Obviously, I don't notice. Is that true? Not always. Not always. Once in a while, I will say something, and he will look at me with eye contact at that time, and look at me, and with or without a mask, I can tell, I think I just crossed the line, and we have to talk about it. So I just bought a book, Do You Want to Talk About Race? Because I think all of us have items to learn when we looked at this. So when we talk about diversity, I was coming up to Door County. I have a friend who has a place in Sister Bay. And so 9 women were coming up. It's our bunco group. We come up here once a year. And we stopped in Brussels and Marchants. This is a few years back. And we stopped in to pick up some stuff. And I got so excited. Because you know what they sold? They sold Belgian pies. I had not had a Belgian pie since my grandma had passed away when I was a teenager. And they had every kind. I bought 7 of them. Okay? Because I assumed that if I love that Belgian pie, and by the way, what's my favorite flavor? Prune, which is not most people's favorite flavor. I'm just going to say. So I bought 7 of these. And I can remember I was so excited. I'm like, oh, we're going to have dessert for our dinner. Did everybody like them? No, they're like, really? So it's all about how we grow up, right? Or what we believe. So talk to people, talk skills and strategies, recognize those differences. I'm going to go on to implicit racial bias. This is really important. This is one of the hottest topics, and this is something everyone, no matter what race or color skin you have, can learn. What is it? Usually it's a mental process that causes most of us to have negative attitudes about people or groups of people based only on their race or ethnicity. It is unfortunate that a color of skin is so obvious. Most of you could never tell what color of eyes someone has. I do. I'm an eye person, which thank goodness with a mask on, I can still look at people's eyes. And I can tell by looking at them if they're smiling or if they're unhappy. That's something I've always looked at. But when we look at it, race is just something that stands out. And we have to learn more about race diversity. We're going to talk a lot about this with the staff too. So what can we do? We can look at race in a different way. My son, I told you, is brown skinned. In 2nd grade, they were going to go to a church event in which they were supposed to wear a sports paraphernalia. So he and his best buddy, Jack, in 2nd grade, both decided which football jersey they were going to wear because they had the same one. They were going to wear a white t-shirt underneath it and a pair of jeans. And Jack turned to Robbie and said, you know what? No one's going to be able to tell us apart. 7 years old. Did he know his colors? Absolutely. Did he really believe that? Yes. It was such a precious, sweet thing. And it really gives us an indication of what we learn through the media and our experiences and how we change. Because I'm pretty sure today, at 20 years old, they are both on the same college campus, but I don't think they would think that people won't be able to tell them apart. All right, we're going to move on to workplace bullying. What is bullying? Workplace bullying is not covered in federal or state law, but it is covered in your policy under general harassment. What is bullying? It's the same thing it was in high school. It's unreasonable, unwanted, aggressive behavior intended, and that is a key part of workplace and bullying. Sometimes with general harassment, like sexual or even a protected class, we don't intend to be rude or discriminatory. Sometimes we just don't recognize in our own behavior. But bullying is different. Bullying is intentional. It is with purpose. It's repeated and involves a real imbalance of power. Some examples of bullying. Swearing at someone. Is it okay to scream and yell at a coworker or employee or someone from the public or to get yelled at work anymore? It is not. Might it have been many years ago? Yeah, that was a pretty common management strategy. It is not today, okay? Spreading rumors, excluding someone, blaming them without factual justifications, being given work of unrealistic deadlines and goals, excessive monitoring or micromanaging, stealing their ideas as their own. My number one complaint of county employees after doing workplace bullying training is that someone never gives them credit for their ideas. That the department head or manager takes a great idea and doesn't even say, hey, Kelly had that idea. That's where I got it from. They pass it off as their own, so they never get credit. Does a pat on the back matter? Absolutely. So it's that credit. And being treated differently than the rest of your group. Examples of bullying, I have seen really good people, you guys, leave our public entities because they're not comfortable. Because their stomach starts to hurt so bad when they are within a mile of that department. Doesn't matter if it's a weekend or during the week. Stomach is related to your brain and your health as well. It's even been referred as PTSD. Who are the bullies? It can be anybody. Do women bully? Absolutely, they're quite good at it. Okay, so at least 50% of the bullies are women. It's not just a man. It's not just someone in management. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's employee to employee, where everybody in that department picks on one person until what happens? We get them to leave, to quit. What people don't always realize is that there's going to be another target, and who's it going to be next? It can be a board member to board member. It can be a school superintendent to the principals. And it can be vice versa. It can be the public to the school board superintendent. Would you want to be a superintendent today of a school district? Some very tough decisions are being made constantly. I've never been on so many calls with 420 superintendents in the state in the Department of Health Services. Who else is involved with those? Is our local health officials, right? They also have a very tough job. Constant calls from people without the health background having to make tough decisions on whether we keep kids in school. If we bring staff in, what are the rules going to be? What's my number one call right now? September 28th, the mask mandate is up. Do we continue with that rule in our school district? What does the insurance company think? Where do I direct them back to? Your local health official, your county public health department, because they know the numbers. They know where we're headed in your area or your city or town. The workplace bully has a type A personality. They're competitive, they're aggressive. People sometimes walk on eggshells around them. Don't want to set out him. I had one incident, I had a superintendent at school. They had a doorbell set up through the whole administration building because they only worked 2 days a week. He was a part-time superintendent. So when he pulled in, they never knew which day it was going to be. The first front person in the front would ring the bell, and it meant to get out. If you can get out of that building, go ahead. If you're facilities or director of curriculum and you have a reason to go to another building or a classroom, go. You have time to get out the back. That's scary. Okay? That's a bully. We don't want to wake the sleeping giant. They crave power and control. What I think is important about the workplace victim is you picture the weakest person. Maybe it's a new hire. Maybe it's someone who's only been around for a while or doesn't have as much experience. That is incorrect. The workplace victim is the person who's the most popular, most respected, experienced person on that staff. Because a workplace bully craves power. And if I take out that strongest person, they perceive it that it gives them power. So it is not the new person like we picture on a playground. And then I talk about if you've been the bully. Because I think, frankly, when we talk about any of these items, all of us are guilty of some behavior. And recognizing that is really key. So if you've been the bully, or you've harassed or made an inappropriate comment or joke, what do? You apologize. You go back to that person and you tell them you're sorry and don't just ignore it and hope that it goes away. What can an employee do if they've been bullied? They need to realize that it's not them. It's not something that they did incorrectly. They need to talk to the bully and they have to have specifics and write it down. And an investigation helps a lot because there's always two perceptions, right? So that investigation brings it out. I just had a town chairman call me last Thursday. He had this whole story about some bullying that had happened in a small department. And I said, okay, you have one side now, and you don't have any specifics. You have feelings. Now you need to go back, find out what specifically the bullying was about or the harassment. And then you need to go back and do the other side of the investigation because there are often two sides to a story. How do we address behaviors? Through staff retention. Your reputation is one of the most important things that a public entity has. You want to create a culture of professionals. And of course, coming from the insurance side, it's great when we reduce the liability exposure and improve risk management. And I'm going to end with this last slide. Words to ponder. When we feel a sense of belonging, it's not because we're the same as everyone else, but because we have been accepted as we are. And when we're comfortable and happy coming to work, we are more productive, and a more unified approach will get the job done to service the public that is so important to us.
Thank you, Jody.
I can see you again.
Discussion with Jody?
Any comments, questions? I welcome your time this morning, and please let Kelly know if there's something you want me to specifically highlight a little bit more, because our staff trainings are an hour and a half, so about double the time. So we'll go a little bit more in depth. We'll do some implicit bias testing and stuff as well. And I will send that to you as well if you ever want to try to look at it. It's pretty interesting looking at the color of skins, dark or white, or eyes or noses and face, and how we relate to other words like good and bad and smart and not smart to them, and how fast we are. It really gives everybody their own score on implicit racial bias. So we'll be doing that next week. Yes?
Thank you very much. The thing that I feel like I run into most, and not necessarily on county board, because I don't know that we get into these discussions so much, but I would imagine that it would be applicable, is folks not thinking that there's a problem or not realizing that there is that implicit bias. So, just like, oh, well, I don't see colors, or whatever, other statements like that. I don't discriminate, so there's no problem there. So do you have any further guidance from your professional standpoint as far as what we can do in this extremely white community that we live in to really take a closer look at our own reactions that we might not even be aware of? I mean, I know that myself, even that there's more work that I can do. So how to convince people that there is work to do and that they can do better than what we've been doing?
Such a big part of that is listening. I was at a highway department a couple weeks ago delivering some highway safety day stuff, that big project that we do. And the administrative assistant there is someone I went to high school with, okay, which is a long time ago. But we were talking and we were kind of catching up. Her daughter is a police officer. She's a K-9 unit leader. And she said to me, we started to talk a little bit about the attitude towards the police force and racial bias and the protests. And she said to me, well, I'm not a racist, but those people, what did she just do? She categorized every person that looks like a particular person that she thinks is a criminal. Those people. And so part of it is recognizing when we say things like that. I'm not a racist, but should be one key. But what? So, and when you categorize all people in one group, if I said, oh, all those Belgians in Door County, right? That's categorizing you in one group. Are you all the same? You probably don't even all like Belgian pie. Okay? So when you look at it, so that is a big key. We will actually go through some of that in the implicit bias too, and I'm going to bring up some other things from the book that I'm reading as well. But it's having the dialogue and the discussion and not being afraid to say that and talk about it. When my sons were in school, our school had a lot of folks and students and families from the Indian population, meaning from India. And so I don't know much about that culture. So we had some of them actually camping with us. By the way, the food was amazing. It's amazing what food you can cook over a camp stove. I learned a lot. I had a lot of different spices. But I would ask, and I would say, please tell me if I am being rude or insensitive, because that's not my intention. It is more just to learn about your culture and your thoughts and how you look at things. And some of the kids have been made fun of for the food that they brought and stuff like that. So having those discussions and not ignoring it. When they were in kindergarten, we had kindergarten graduation, and I was on the food team. And I don't know, okay, this was my oldest, so we go a little over the top, all right? So we're gonna have this food, and we had a diverse group. And so I was really excited about the food we were were bringing in. And it went, by the way, I was last in line and did not get any of that diverse food that I don't normally eat. And so 2 years later, my next one came through, and this teaching staff said, and we do not need to have all those types of dishes. What were they saying? Who's teaching those kids? Who's teaching my kids? Right? What do you mean we don't have to have? Those are the first foods gone, I want you to know, because I didn't get any. I was the last one through the line. So it's those types of things when that happens, is pulling them inside and saying, hey, do you realize what you just said? Or what we perceived you said. Maybe you didn't feel that way. Maybe you thought there was just too much food. I don't know. But so things like that, it's raising that dialogue and conversations and not being afraid to do it. And when we are in a predominantly white area, we think that everybody thinks like us. And just because every one of you is white, you're all different nationalities. I know a lot of you are Belgian, probably. How many are Belgian? Do we have any Germans? Okay, I actually have more German. So that's usually when I'm in Washington County, West Bend area, that I have a lot of Germans living there. But we have different nationalities. Do you have very different cultures if you're Belgian or German? Italian? French? Absolutely. We are a melting pot of different things and we can learn from one another. So thank you. I will raise that more and keep looking at that. It's really raising the dialogue. Any others? Thank you so much for your time this morning. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Jody.
And I wish we were at the county convention, just saying.
We won trivia last year, so.
Yes, you did. Did you have fun with that?
Okay, we're going to take a 10-minute recess. Be back at 10:15. Recording thing.
You guys totally won trivia.